Abroad Pod with James Davis.
Hello, listener. Thank you so much for joining us on this, the 31st edition of the Teaching Abroad Pod, coming at you on June 15th. I'm your host, James Davis, and with me this week to talk about what it's like to live and teach in Japan is my co-host, Alex, from Oxford Seminars' Job Placement Service. Hey, Alex, how are things going?
Things are going well. We're enjoying some great early summer weather here. How about you, James?
I am also enjoying the early summer weather. It's been pretty good. So we're going to talk to Anna Lang today, and she's been teaching in Japan for a couple of years now. She is one of our experts on the country. Recently made a video for Oxford Seminars, kind of detailing a day in the life of a teacher in Japan. But before we get to her, have you ever been to Japan?
I did go to Japan. I just briefly visited Osaka. It was really amazing. I was coming from Korea, which at the time was kind of a bit of a monoculture in terms of Seoul. There was a very sort of standardized way that people like to dress and sort of behave. And Osaka just seemed pretty wild. The fashion in the streets, people wearing wild clothes and boots, people busking, playing music, and it was a bit of a shock, but it was really cool. It was really interesting. And we traveled around the city a lot, ate some amazing food. And we actually went for a hike in like a national park that's like just outside in the hills, just outside. And as a Canadian, I was very surprised to see they were deep frying maple leaves and eating them, selling them as some kind of a deep fried maple leaf snack. So as a Canadian, I was obliged, of course, to buy one and try it. And it didn't really taste like anything, but I was like, well, that's something I've never seen before.
Very nice. I so wish I'd gone. I didn't get a chance to go while I was teaching in Korea, but it's definitely on the bucket list. Before we get to that interview with Anna, we're just going to have a quick word from our sponsor.
With Oxford Seminars, starting your new career teaching ESL couldn't be easier. Oxford Seminars has trained more than 70,000 teachers over the past 20 years, and you could be next. Their comprehensive 120-hour program starts with live instruction from an experienced ESL teacher, followed by convenient online modules. If your goal is to relocate overseas or even teach from the comfort of your own home, Oxford Seminars' renowned lifetime job placement service will get you where you want to be. Right now, you can get $50 off your Oxford Seminars TESOL TESOL TEFL course price when paying in full by calling 1-800-779-1779 and giving the code TEACHINGABROADPOD. Visit oxfordseminars.com today to find out more.
We are now joined by Anna Lang. Anna has been living and teaching English in Japan for over a year, and in addition to enjoying her work, has kept herself very busy getting out there and exploring her new home on weekends and holidays. Anna graduated from the University of North Carolina at Wilmington in 2018 with a Bachelor of Arts in Elementary Education, along with a concentration in English as a second language, and have further completed her Oxford Seminars TESOL certificate in 2019. Anna, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So Anna, you took over our Instagram account recently and you gave us a lot of insight into your life in Japan. You made a fantastic video as well, I must say. You really gave people an insight in what is possible and what it's like to teach in Japan. So when did you realize that was something that you wanted to do?
Well, first, I want to give credit to the video. It was actually made by my boyfriend, Sana Shimotsuma. So I can't take all the credit. He's really good at video editing and everything, but thank you for that. What really got me interested in teaching abroad was I was in high school and my mom, she worked at a refugee center for immigrant and refugee children, and she helped tutor them in English, and it was a big center, and I used to go volunteer there for volunteer hours in high school. And that's kind of where I started really enjoying teaching, but mostly teaching English as a second language because there was a lot of foreign immigrant children that I was working with. And so alongside that and deciding to go live abroad, I had kind of always had a bit of an international family. My mom is from Scotland. My father's American. I was actually born in South Africa before living in America. So I had some travel already under my belt, and I just knew that was something I wanted to do, was go live in a new country, experience something different. And luckily I was able to do teaching and living abroad just kind of in one hand. So that's what really got me started.
And how did you settle on Japan?
I wish I had a really good answer to that question and that I could say I was really inspired by like anime or something about Japanese culture, or I had something drew me here. But honestly, I just knew I had never been to Asia, and that was never a place that really crossed my mind when I was young. So I thought, oh, okay, maybe I'll try Asia. And I'd heard some good things about teaching abroad in a lot of Asian countries. So when I was taking my TEFL course, a lot of other students in my class really wanted to go to Korea. And I had maybe thought about it, but I don't know, maybe I just wanted to be defiant. And I thought, no, I don't want to go to Korea. The rest of them want to go to Korea. I'll try somewhere else. And so I was kind of between China and Japan. And one day it just clicked. I just decided, I want to try Japan. I want to go there. And so that's really where I started honing in on for finding jobs. And my placement advisor was looking for jobs in Japan, and that's just what worked out for me.
Do you think there was a benefit, Anna, to not having those expectations or, being so obsessed with Japanese culture beforehand? Everything is maybe more exciting that way.
I like to think so, yeah, because I had really no idea about anything to do with Japan before I came here. And I had a lot of people who really kind of questioned me and my choices when I would tell friends and things like that, like, oh yeah, I want to go teach abroad. I want to go live in Japan. They'd say, oh wow, Japan. Have you ever visited there before? I'd say no. And they'd say, okay, can you speak Japanese? I said no. And they said, do you know anyone who lives there right now? I said no. And then I started thinking, is this a good idea? I don't know if I should be going to Japan. But I do agree. I think that it was a benefit because everything was new. Every day something new happens to me, or I experience something new that I would never have expected. And it's just really blown me away. And it's been an experience that I will never forget. And I think I did have an advantage in that way of just having absolutely no expectation coming into it.
How about the language? Have you been able to learn any Japanese while you've been there or take any classes?
I'm trying my best. I'm coming up on 2 years. So it's becoming a little embarrassing at the amount of Japanese I don't know. But yes, when I first moved to Japan, I joined a class. And it was, of course, to learn Japanese, but I also was trying to meet more people and do something besides work. I really enjoyed the class, really liked my professor or my sensei, and I did learn quite a lot. But I left the class after almost a year. I just didn't have time for it in my schedule anymore. But day to day, Japanese, I hear it all the time, every day, but I don't get as much of an intensive lesson like I did when I took my class. So I'm trying to learn on my own. So I use some apps. I bought some like children's books that are in Japanese and trying to read those. I started taking a yoga class that's all in Japanese, and that's been a whole other challenge on its own. But I am trying in different ways to learn Japanese. It's much better than when I started here. I still can't really form a sentence very well, but it's still leaps and bounds above what it was like when I first landed here almost 2 years ago.
Would you say though that I think that's maybe a misconception that people have, like your friends or family are asking before you, oh, do you know the language? Well, actually, you can just get by, even though you're trying and you're doing these different things. Do you think ultimately though you've got what you need to to get through life in Japan?
Yeah, for sure. It is possible. If I can do it, anyone can do it. It really is possible. Like you do get by, and people in Japan are so considerate and so helpful. It's not like if they notice you don't speak Japanese or understand Japanese, they're immediately annoyed. They really want to help. Even just a cashier working at a convenience store, something like that, they're incredibly helpful. Yeah, you really are able to get by. And most of the time, the times where it is confusing in the moment, it's maybe really frustrating, but you look back on it and it's really kind of a funny story how some things get mixed up because of the language barrier. So it's really not the end of the world. And I am learning. Maybe someday I'll be able to have a full-on conversation, but I'm not there yet.
That's fine. So there are a lot of reasons why people would choose Japan for teaching, and we'll definitely discuss those later. But before we get into the fun stuff, how's the teaching going? How are your classes? How's your school? How's that side of things progressed over your 2 years in Japan?
Well, teaching's going really great. I work in an international school, so we are using English all the time. I am a homeroom teacher. So instead of me just teaching the English class, I actually teach all of the core classes. So English, also math, science, arts and crafts, those kinds of things. The other lessons they have are taught by a Japanese teacher. So of course, their Japanese class, calligraphy, social studies, things like that. So most of the day is spent in English. And in fact, it's like a rule in our school that you should be speaking English only in your English classes. You shouldn't be speaking Japanese. When I first started, I was teaching fourth grade, and I actually arrived in the middle of the school year because of coronavirus, like COVID travel restrictions. So last year I was given fourth grade again because I didn't get to teach for the entire grade level. And that's pretty unusual because in Japan, every year you get a different grade level. It's actually pretty typical in a public school for you to just kind of find out randomly which grade you're going to get. It's like a big meeting where everyone's sitting there and the principal and vice principal are there and they just start naming off like Anna Lang, grade 4, grade 3. That's just how they do it. And that's kind of culturally just the way that they do it in school. It's really different, really interesting. The teaching has been going really great. Things like that I find are really different. So just that for an example, the students don't do this for the English teachers, but before every Japanese lesson, the Japanese teacher will come in and he or she will say in Japanese a way to say, okay, stand up, and everyone stands up and stands behind their chair, pushes in their chair, and then kind of go ahead or bow, and then they all bow and they say, onegai shimasu. And I remember witnessing that in like my first year teaching, and I Googled it, like, onegai shimasu, what does that mean? And it means please, like, or please do this for me. And you say it a lot when you're asking for a favor. And so I pulled my students aside and I say, why do you bow before your class and say, please? I don't understand. And they said that it actually means in context, like, please teach me, or please teach this to me. So little cultural things like that, I see a lot on the day-to-day basis. Events that we do, like we just had a sports day a couple of weeks ago, and that's a really big event that they do once a year, and it's against all the different grade levels. They play all these games and things like that. And that's actually not just from our school, that's really all around Japan. So even though I'm at an international school, they really kind of take on a lot of traditional Japanese culturals or customs, or things that they just do throughout the year that you would see it in a public Japanese school, but our school does it too. So I'm kind of getting the best of both worlds because I'm getting to teach in an international school, but I'm kind of seeing a little bit what the public schools are like.
And do you remember any funny or interesting stories from the classroom? Anything pop out in your memory when you think back?
Oh, that's a good one. There was a lot of interesting moments when I was actually teaching online. The first one that comes to my mind, it's hard to hear online and language barrier, everything, but I'm talking to my class and telling them about how I'll be coming to Japan soon. I just have to get a visa. I said, I just have to get my visa and then I can come to Japan. And then a student in my class on the other end of the Zoom call, he says, Miss Lang, I have an idea. You can just go to the airport and you can bring them lots of visas, like a cheese visa, a pepperoni visa. And he just kept naming all these things. I was like, no, not visa, not pizza. I'm saying visa. He thought I had been saying pizza this entire time. And like, that's the ticket to get into other countries. But yeah, that stuck out in my mind. That happened a while ago.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. If only it was that easy.
Yeah, I wish.
So on the other side of teaching, Japan is kind of famous for having pretty good salary and benefits and things like that. Do you enjoy your lifestyle in Japan?
I do really enjoy my lifestyle. I live in an apartment in like more of the city area. I live in Nagoya, Japan. So I live really in the city, really close to a really big subway station, train station, bus station called Nagoya Station. And comparatively, my rent for this apartment versus rent for an apartment in the city where I'm from in America, like Charlotte, North Carolina, is so much cheaper. I was really shocked by it, actually, just comparatively, like living in the city. Outside of work, I have a lot of resources and a lot of availability to go on trips or pay for traveling or do different things outside of work. I don't know. I do really enjoy my lifestyle, and I'm also able to save a lot. So it has been really great. Yeah.
Did the school help you find that apartment, or did they give you any assistance with that?
They did actually. They did help me find this apartment. They require that you live in this certain apartment building for the first 6 months. And this apartment building has a lot of other foreigners. The people that work in this apartment building, like the office, they speak English. They offer a lot of furniture that can be rented. They do a lot of other services for you that you don't really find very easily if you are living in another apartment that doesn't really accommodate foreigners like that. The contract isn't a strict contract. You can kind of come and go as you need to. That's been really great living in this apartment. They just require you to live there just for the first 6 months until if you want to find something different or you want to live in a different area. It's completely up to you, but it was really great having this place already kind of found for me when I came here, because that was a complete load off of the stress that there is of moving to another country. So yes, the school did help me find a place to live.
Do you think that environment helped you settle in more easily? Like did you experience culture shock?
I did experience culture shock. And when I first moved here, I was really naive. I really thought, oh, it'll be so easy. Culture shock, whatever, I'll get used to it. I just really undermined how challenging it was. The biggest culture shock, though, was really just the lack of English. I was just really surprised because I had traveled so much before. I knew that in certain places there is someone or some person that can help you to the best of their ability in English. That just does not happen here. It's really, really difficult to find someone who can speak English, even if you're at like the immigration office or something like that. So that was the biggest culture shock for me. But I really enjoy living in the city because I'm around so much. And so when I just go step outside, I'm surrounded by people and restaurants and cafes and like izakayas and things like that. So I get to see a lot of Japan because of where I live. I'm not really in a place that's like completely rural. So I'd say the biggest culture shock was just the language. That was the one that really surprised me the most.
And what about travel? I know you've done a lot of sightseeing and taken lots of little trips while you've been there. Any spots stand out in your memory of cool places you've been?
Yes, I've been to quite a few, but I think my favorite place has been, it's near Hiroshima. It's called Iwakuni. And it's just so beautiful, like really beautiful water near the coastline and mountains. And then it's right near Hiroshima. And that was an amazing city to go visit. Really moving and just really beautiful. I really could go on and on about a lot of places, but those are the ones that stood out to me the most just because of how beautiful the scenery was. But other places too have a lot to offer when it comes to like sightseeing. So like Osaka, they have USJ or Universal Studios Japan, and that draws in a lot of people. I just recently visited Kobe, and that was an amazing city too. And that's pretty international, more than I expected. Your ears kind of perk up when you hear someone speaking English and you look around like, who is that? So you heard that a lot when I was in Kobe. But yeah, Iwakuni and Hiroshima, more of like the west side of Japan, is just really beautiful. That was my favorite.
And the other big topic on the Teaching Abroad podcast, apart from teaching abroad, is food. We love to talk about food. So what are your highlights, Anna?
The food here is really next level, really amazing. When I first moved here, I had, no idea what anything was. I wasn't really sure about a lot of Japanese food. The first time I had ramen, I actually didn't like it. And now that's like my favorite food in Japan. It's really unlike anything that you'll get anywhere else. It's so sad that in America, ramen is like the dried noodles that you put in the boiling water with the it's nothing like that, So ramen is so amazing. But also just when you go to like the convenience stores, or they call them konbinis, the convenience store food culture in Japan is crazy. So like we have 7-Elevens, and then there's other brands of convenience stores that sell really, really good food. When I first moved here to Japan and I stayed in a hotel in Tokyo, because of COVID, I wasn't allowed to eat in the hotel, but they gave me a voucher for like the convenience store. And I thought, what? I'm not going to eat anything from the convenience store. This is the worst thing. That was my first experience coming in Japan. I thought, well, this is nothing. This is terrible. But actually, there's amazing food you can get just from the convenience store, and just everything is good quality. Everything is good, even if you just find little stalls or something small like that. But yeah, I'd say the ramen is my favorite. And in every prefecture in Japan, they're kind of known for something, like a different type of food or something like that. Where I live in Aichi, we're known for something called anko, and that's like a red bean paste, but it's sweet. And you'll see it everywhere. They fill it, they put it inside pancakes, you spread it on toast. There's a lot of like Japanese confectionery or pastry that has that filled inside of it. And it's so delicious. It's really good. That's one of my favorites as well, is anko. Yeah, the food here is incredible. It's going to be missed whenever I decide to leave Japan, for sure.
Do you do much cooking at home? Have you learned how to cook any dishes?
Yes, I do cook a lot at home. I actually don't eat a lot of meat. I was mostly vegetarian before coming to Japan, but I've kind of been more lenient with that so that I can try a lot of different foods here. But I do cook a lot at home. I actually had a student write me a recipe of how to make something, and she put it in like her journal for me to read, and she printed out all the ingredients I needed, all like the steps. It's called yakisoba, and they use like soba noodles, and it's kind of a stir fry with noodles and vegetables, and it's usually made with pork. But she knew I didn't eat meat, so she wrote a note like, you don't have to eat the meat or something like that. So I do enjoy making that. That one's pretty good. Yeah, I think that's the one I probably make the most, is yakisoba. But I've been wanting to make a lot of different types of Japanese dishes, so that whenever and if ever I get a visitor from overseas, I can really impress them with my Japanese cooking skills.
Nice. Anna, before we let you go, because it is late and we do appreciate you talking to us, we do have a big kind of final question that we like to ask all of our guests on the podcast. And that is, if you could put yourself kind of where you were 2 years ago, if you were talking to someone who's thinking about doing what you've done, what would you say to them if they're kind of on the fence or, unsure about how this whole process will go?
I'd say 100% just do it. And the reason why I say that is because you learn so much about yourself when you do something like this. When you go completely on your own in a new place, new language, new everything, you really put yourself to the test, and you really are giving yourself the chance to grow. So this entire experience for me, as difficult as it is at times, it's really helping me grow into being a better person, a more well-rounded person, a more open-minded person. So I don't think that there could be any regrets, because even if you do come here and you think, I hate it, I want to leave maybe after just a year, you can still say that you did it, and that there will be something that you've learned from it, whether it's good or bad. I can't stress enough how much I recommend doing something like this. So if you're on the fence, I just say, just go for it. You regret the things you don't do more than the things that you actually do.
Wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Anna. And yeah, thank you again for everything. The video really is amazing. The video editing, yes. Kudos to your boyfriend on that one. That was really wonderful. We'll post links to that video as well for anyone wanting to check that out. But yes, thank you so much for speaking to us, Anna. Hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This has been a great opportunity to talk to you guys on a podcast.
Thanks.
Thanks so much again to Anna for taking the time to speak to us. Before we go, Alex, do you have a JPS, a job placement service update for us?
Yes, sure do, James. So we're talking about Japan this week. And, over the past couple of years with the pandemic, a lot of teachers who had been hoping to teach in Japan had to really exercise some extreme patience. They're waiting for the borders to reopen and work visas to start being issued again. And that wait was really long for some people. And luckily, just a few months ago, a lot of those restrictions were lifted or eased. And so our contacts are now starting to hire again for Japan, actively looking for positions in to start in the fall of 2022, and even some looking ahead to positions to start in early 2023. And I think the chat today with Anna was a good example of why Japan is so popular. Great salary, great benefits, but then even more than that, just the unique culture and the beauty of the country. So now is a great time to apply to Japan after a long wait. And then on another note, sort of an unrelated note, but just we thought we'd highlight this because it's kind of an interesting trend. So for unvaccinated travelers and teachers, countries are starting to lift and ease their border restrictions for unvaccinated travelers, including Thailand. So starting June 1st of 2022, unvaccinated or partially vaccinated foreign travelers can apply for the no quarantine Thailand pass by submitting their PCR test. So basically, if you have a negative PCR test, you're allowed to freely now enter Thailand without any quarantine. And for more information on this, you can visit the Thai Embassy website at thaiembassy.com. This is an increasing trend we're going to see. So I think the next step will be to look at which schools still require teachers to be fully vaccinated. I think that's going to be another hurdle for unvaccinated teachers, but at least in terms of travel restrictions, they are being eased a little bit. So a bit of good news for those folks.
That is perfect. Thank you so much, Alex, for the update. Thank you for everything today.
Yeah, thanks, James. It was great. It was a great one. I enjoyed it.
Before we let you go, listen, I just want to say a big thanks for tuning in. Thanks again to Anna. Thanks again to producer Kat. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe and share it with your friends. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere. If you have any great ideas you'd like to hear us discuss, any people you'd like us to interview in an upcoming episode, let us know. Leave it in the comments on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or even email us directly at teachingabroadpod@oxfordseminars.com. Have a wonderful rest of your day.